If you want to change your life fast, not someday, not after motivation arrives, not when circumstances improve, then you need principles that work under pressure, not comfort philosophies, not feel-good quotes. Principles that hold when life is unfair, when people disappoint you, when fear shows up without warning. Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It is about being unshakable. The first principle is this: control what you can, release what you cannot. Most people waste their lives fighting reality. They argue with the past. They resent people they cannot change. They obsess over outcomes they do not control. Strength begins the moment you stop negotiating with reality. You control your effort, your discipline, your integrity, your response. Everything else is noise. Once you accept this, your mind becomes quieter and your actions become sharper. The second principle: do not react, respond. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. The person who insults you wants a reaction. The situation that frustrates you feeds on impulsiveness. When you pause, even for a second, you take back power. Silence can be strength. Calm can be dominance. You do not need to win every argument. You need to master yourself. The third principle is embrace discomfort daily. Comfort weakens people. Discomfort builds resilience. Cold mornings, hard conversations, training when you don't feel like it. Discipline is choosing what is hard now, so life becomes easier later. The Stoic does not avoid pain, they train inside it. That is why they don't break when pressure arrives. The fourth principle: detach from outcomes, commit to process. When you tie your peace to results, you become anxious and fragile. You cannot control how others respond. You cannot guarantee success. But you can guarantee effort, show up prepared, execute with precision, walk away knowing you did your part. That is freedom. The fifth principle: your character is your reputation with yourself. People lie to others easily, but they destroy themselves when they lie inward. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken trust internally. Strength is built when your word to yourself becomes law. No one needs to be watching. The sixth principle is master your emotions, or they will master you. Emotions are information, not commands. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. Fear tells you something matters. But acting blindly on emotion creates regret. The Stoic observes emotions like weather, acknowledging them without surrendering control. Power is emotional regulation under stress. The seventh principle: accept mortality urgently. This is not morbid. It is clarifying. You are not promised tomorrow. When you truly accept this, you stop tolerating nonsense. You stop delaying growth. You stop living as if time is infinite. Urgency sharpens priorities. Death is the greatest motivator for meaningful life. The eighth principle is speak less, observe more. Weak people talk to impress. Strong people watch to understand. Silence allows you to read intention, energy, inconsistencies. Not everything requires your opinion. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Strategic silence is a form of intelligence. The ninth principle: be indifferent to praise and criticism. Praise can distract you. Criticism can derail you. Both are external. If your self-worth rises and falls based on opinions, you are controlled. Do the work, let results speak. Stay centered whether you are applauded or attacked. The 10th principle is train for adversity before it arrives. Do not wait for crisis to discover your limits. Mental rehearsal. Physical conditioning, emotional discipline. When pressure comes, you do not rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training. Prepare daily so chaos does not surprise you. The 11th principle: choose virtue over convenience. The easy choice often costs you later. The right choice often hurts now. Integrity is expensive, but weakness costs more. The Stoic chooses honesty when lying is easier, discipline when quitting feels good. Long, long-term respect over short-term relief. The 12th principle is be self-reliant but not isolated. Strength is independence of thought and action, but wisdom is knowing when to listen, when to learn, when to stand alone. You do not need validation. You need alignment. Build yourself so solid that loneliness never scares you and connection never weakens you. Stoicism is not loud. It does not beg for attention. It does not announce strength. It shows it through consistency, restraint, and quiet confidence. Immediate life transformation does not come from motivation. It comes from adopting principles and living them when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, and unseen. Master yourself, and the rest becomes manageable. Self-mastery is the ultimate power because everything in your life begins and ends with how you govern yourself. Before you can lead, influence, protect, or build anything meaningful, you must first be able to command your own mind. Most people believe power comes from status, money, physical strength, or control over others, but those forms of power are fragile. They depend on circumstances, approval, and luck. The person who lacks self-mastery can have everything and still be weak. The person who has mastered themselves can have very little and remain unshaken. Your emotions are the first battlefield. Anger, fear, jealousy, insecurity, and impatience are not flaws. They are signals. But when those signals become drivers, they take control of your actions. The moment your emotions dictate your behavior, you surrender authority over your life. Self-mastery means you feel everything but obey nothing blindly. You can be angry without being reckless. You can be afraid without retreating. You can feel pressure without panicking. That ability alone separates the composed from the chaotic. Reactions are where most people lose. Someone disrespects them, and they react. A situation doesn't go their way, and they react. Life applies pressure, and they explode or collapse. Reaction is unconscious surrender. Response is deliberate command. The space between stimulus and action is where power lives. When you pause, you choose. When you choose, you lead yourself. That pause is not weakness. It is dominance over impulse. Discipline is self. Mastery in action. Motivation is unreliable. Feelings fluctuate. Discipline does not negotiate. When you decide to do what needs to be done regardless of mood, comfort, or external validation, you begin to trust yourself. That trust compounds. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your internal authority strengthens. Every time you break one, it erodes. The world does not need to believe in you if you believe in your own word. Self-mastery also means controlling your attention. What you focus on grows. If you constantly consume negativity, comparison, and noise, your mind becomes scattered and reactive. If you focus on improvement, clarity, and preparation, your mind becomes sharp and stable. Attention is energy. Where you place it determines who you become. Most people are exhausted not because life is hard, but because their focus is undisciplined. There is strength in emotional regulation under pressure. Anyone can be calm when life is easy. The real test is composure when things go wrong, when plans fail, when people betray you, when outcomes are uncertain. Self-mastery allows you to stay steady when others spiral. Not because you are numb, but because you are trained. You do not suppress emotion, you manage it. You do not deny reality, you accept it and move forward strategically. Control over yourself also means restraint. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every challenge needs to be confronted immediately. Not every battle is worth your energy. Restraint is intelligence. Silence is often more powerful than argument. Walking away can be stronger than proving a point. Self-mastery teaches you that winning is not always about domination, but about choosing what deserves your time and effort. Fear is one of the greatest tests of self-mastery. Fear is not the enemy, it is information. It tells you what matters, what is at stake, what requires courage. But when fear dictates decisions, it limits growth. Self-mastery allows you to act despite fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward while fear is present. Each time you do this, fear loses influence over you. Another aspect of self-mastery is responsibility. No excuses. No blaming circumstances, people, or the past. You may not be responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for how you respond to it. This mindset is not comforting, but it is empowering. Victimhood removes control. Responsibility restores it. When you take ownership of your actions, habits, and choices, you regain authority over your life. Self-mastery requires embracing discomfort. Growth is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. Self-control is uncomfortable, but comfort is a trap. It weakens resilience and dulls awareness. When you voluntarily choose discomfort through training, learning, and self-imposed discipline, you become familiar with pressure. Then, when life applies it unexpectedly, you are not shocked by it. Mastery also means consistency, not intensity followed by collapse, but steady, repeatable actions over time. You do not need dramatic change. You need controlled habits executed daily. Small disciplines practiced consistently build unbreakable confidence. Confidence does not come from hype. It comes from evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. The ultimate goal of self-mastery is freedom. Freedom from emotional hijacking. Freedom from impulsive decisions. Freedom from needing approval. Freedom from being controlled by circumstances. When you master yourself, no one can manipulate you easily. No situation can easily destabilize you. You become internally anchored. This kind of power is quiet. It does not announce itself. It shows up in posture, tone, decisions, and restraint. Others feel it without you explaining it. You move differently. You speak deliberately. You act with intention. You do not rush. You do not panic. You do not beg for validation. When you control your mind, your emotions, and your discipline, external chaos loses its ability to dominate you. You stop being reactive and start being strategic. You stop chasing control over others and focus on command over yourself. And in that shift, life stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling manageable, because the strongest force you will ever need to face is already under your control. Discomfort is the path to strength, because ease never builds resilience. Comfort feels safe, but it slowly weakens the mind and body. When everything is convenient, predictable, and painless, you lose your edge without realizing it. Strength is forged in resistance. Pressure reveals capacity. The Stoic understands that avoiding discomfort is not self-care, it is self-sabotage. Growth begins the moment you willingly step into what is difficult instead of running from it. Every meaningful transformation requires friction. Muscles grow by tearing and repairing. Confidence grows by facing uncertainty and surviving it. Discipline grows by doing what you would rather avoid. Discomfort is not punishment, it is training. When you choose it voluntarily, it stops being something that controls you. It becomes something you use. The person who can tolerate discomfort for a purpose becomes unstoppable in a world addicted to ease. Most people wait for discomfort to be forced on them. They wait for crisis, loss, failure, or pressure to teach them lessons they could have learned earlier. The Stoic does the opposite. They train before the storm. Cold mornings, long hours, hard conversations, uncomfortable truths. By practicing hardship in controlled ways, you expand your tolerance. Then, when life delivers unexpected pressure, you are not overwhelmed by it. Discomfort reveals truth. When things get hard, excuses disappear. Masks fall off. You see who you really are when no one is clapping and nothing is easy. Comfort allows you to lie to yourself. Discomfort forces honesty. It shows you your limits and invites you to push beyond them. Without discomfort, self-knowledge remains shallow. There is a difference between pain that strengthens and pain that destroys. Strengthening discomfort is intentional, temporary, and aligned with growth. It has a purpose. Avoiding all discomfort does not eliminate pain, it delays it. The pain of discipline lasts a moment, the pain of regret lasts years. The Stoic chooses the short-term discomfort that leads to long-term stability. Mental toughness is built the same way as physical toughness. Repetition under strain, showing up when motivation is absent, holding standards when it would be easier to lower them. Every time you choose the hard option, you reinforce an internal identity of capability. You prove to yourself that you are reliable under pressure. That proof becomes confidence, not the loud kind, but the grounded kind that does not shake easily. Discomfort also sharpens focus. When things are easy, attention drifts. When things are hard, presence increases. You become alert. You stop wasting energy on nonsense. You prioritize what matters. Hardship clarifies. It removes distraction and forces you to operate with intention. That clarity is one of the hidden gifts of discomfort. Avoidance weakens the nervous system. When you consistently escape challenge, your tolerance for stress shrinks. Small problems feel overwhelming. Minor setbacks feel catastrophic. Choosing discomfort expands capacity. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once triggered fear becomes familiar. You stop being fragile because you have trained yourself to withstand pressure. Discomfort builds humility. It reminds you that growth is earned, not given, that strength requires effort, that progress demands sacrifice. It keeps arrogance in check because you are constantly facing your limits. At the same time, it builds quiet pride, the kind that comes from knowing you did the work when it was hard and no one was watching. Hard experiences also build empathy. When you have struggled, trained, failed, and endured, you understand others more deeply. You listen better. You judge less. Strength without understanding becomes arrogance. Strength earned through discomfort becomes wisdom. The Stoic values this balance because it creates composure without cruelty. There is fear on the edge of discomfort, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of pain, but fear loses power through exposure. Each time you face what scares you and survive, fear shrinks. It becomes a signal instead of a barrier. You stop waiting to feel ready. You act, and readiness follows. Discomfort teaches patience. Results do not come immediately. Progress is slow and often invisible. You learn to stay committed without instant rewards. That patience becomes a weapon in a world obsessed with speed and shortcuts. While others quit when it gets uncomfortable, you continue. Over time, that difference compounds. The Stoic does not complain about hardship. Complaining wastes energy and reinforces weakness. Instead, they ask what the situation is demanding of them. More discipline, more restraint, more courage. Hardship becomes instruction rather than injustice. This shift in perspective turns obstacles into training grounds. Choosing discomfort also builds self-respect. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids difficulty. You become someone who meets it. That identity changes how you walk into rooms, how you speak, how you carry yourself. You no longer need external validation because you have internal evidence of strength. Life will always include discomfort. The question is whether it will be accidental and overwhelming or intentional and strengthening. When you choose it daily in small, controlled ways, you build resilience that protects you when the stakes are high. You stop fearing hard days because you have trained for them. You stop chasing comfort because you understand its cost. You become capable of enduring, adapting, and advancing under pressure, and that capability becomes the foundation of real strength. Detaching from outcomes while committing fully to action is one of the most difficult disciplines to master, yet it is the foundation of inner stability. Most suffering does not come from effort, but from attachment to results. People obsess over how things should turn out, how others should respond, and what the future must deliver. When reality deviates from expectations, frustration, anxiety, and resentment appear. The Stoic understands that outcomes are never fully within control, but action always is. Effort is yours, intention is yours, preparation is yours, execution is yours. Results are shaped by variables far beyond you. Other people's decisions, timing, randomness, and external forces all play a role. When you attach your peace to outcomes, you give those external forces authority over your emotional state. When you commit to action and release attachment to results, you reclaim control. Detachment is not indifference. It does not mean you stop caring or lower standards. It means you stop needing a specific result to feel grounded. You show up fully with intensity and discipline without demanding that life reward you in a particular way. This mindset creates calm under pressure. You perform better when your nervous system is not hijacked by expectation. Anxiety thrives on imagined futures. When you are obsessed with outcomes, your mind constantly jumps ahead, predicting failure, disappointment, or judgment. This mental noise drains energy and weakens focus. Commitment to action anchors you in the present. The only moment where power exists is now. When your attention stays on the task in front of you, clarity replaces anxiety. Detachment also protects integrity. When people are desperate for outcomes, they compromise values. They rush decisions, cut corners, manipulate, or betray principles to force results. When outcomes are not the goal, character remains intact. You act correctly regardless of reward. You do what is right even when success is uncertain. This builds long-term trust in yourself. Many people confuse control with effort. They believe that working harder should guarantee success. When it does not, they feel cheated. The Stoic knows that effort increases probability, not certainty. You can do everything right and still fail. Accepting this truth removes bitterness. Failure becomes information rather than humiliation. You adjust, refine, and continue. Detaching from outcomes allows you to take risks without paralysis. Fear often comes from imagining loss, embarrassment, or rejection. When your identity is tied to results, every attempt feels like a threat. When you are committed to action instead, attempts become practice. You are free to experiment, to speak up, to try again, because your worth is not on trial. This principle also strengthens resilience. When outcomes disappoint, many people collapse. They lose motivation, question themselves, or give up entirely. The Stoic recovers faster because their foundation is not shaken. They did the work. They showed up with discipline. The result does not define them. They move forward without emotional debris. Detachment sharpens performance. Athletes, professionals, and leaders perform best when they are absorbed in execution, not fixated on winning. Overthinking outcomes creates tension. Tension creates mistakes. Calm focus creates precision. When you trust your preparation and stay present, actions become fluid and decisive. There is freedom in letting go of applause. When praise becomes irrelevant, so does criticism. You stop chasing validation. You stop fearing judgment. You measure success by alignment with your standards, not external reactions. This internal scorecard creates consistency. You perform the same whether people are watching or not. Commitment to action also demands discipline without immediate reward. You train without guarantees. You work without applause. You prepare for opportunities that may never come. This is where most people quit. The Stoic continues because action itself is the victory. Each disciplined act reinforces identity. Each effort strengthens capacity. Detachment teaches patience. Outcomes unfold on timelines you cannot predict. When you are attached, impatience turns into frustration. When you are detached, patience becomes natural. You understand that progress is often invisible before it is obvious. You stay consistent while others burn out chasing quick results. This principle also builds humility. You accept that you are part of a larger system, that effort matters but does not rule everything. This humility is not weakness, it is realism. It keeps ego in check and keeps learning alive. When you are not obsessed with proving yourself, you are open to improvement. Life becomes lighter when outcomes lose their grip. You stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. You stop replaying scenarios and rehearsing disappointment. You act, observe, adjust, and continue. This rhythm creates momentum without anxiety. Detachment from outcomes does not reduce ambition, it purifies it. You aim high, but you are not destroyed if you fall short. You pursue excellence without desperation. You operate from discipline, not fear, from intention, not attachment. When action becomes your focus and outcomes become secondary, you gain consistency, clarity, and emotional stability. You stop being controlled by what might happen and start being anchored in what you are doing. That shift changes how you move through challenges, how you handle failure, and how you sustain effort over time, allowing you to act with precision and calm regardless of how the world responds.